Hey YouTube, welcome back to Universe X, and today we are going to hop into a little bit of a breakdown of as many treasure cups as we can get our hands on, as well as, kind of a moving forward piece. I'm not going to dive into deck lists because we've got plenty of people doing that. You got Orange Samurai posting deck lists on Facebook. You have Eggman doing his breakdown of Long Beach. You have this gentleman from UK doing all sorts of UK things, and you have Crossworlds TCG also doing a breakdown. I'm going to more talk about the trends and the general breakdown of a bunch of treasure cups, and then we're going to talk a little bit about going forward if you're going to, if you're going to Miami next week, Dallas in 2 weeks, things like that. So with all that being said, I want to thank you guys for the support. We are simply 150 subs away from being at 4,000. So if we can get that somehow before Treasure Cup this weekend, I would be overjoyed. And with that being said, if you do want to help join the UniX fam, help it go up, all you have to do is like the video, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification button so you never miss a beat, and then comment on the video so I can know exactly what you're thinking about this info and the video trends. So let's actually hop into the main info and let's take it from there. So we're going to go in essentially order of what we know least to what we know most, and I'm going to be giving a lot of links so people can pretty much get their channels out there or have more exposure. And if you go to these channels because of me, just put in the comments who sent you. I want them to know. I want them to know who's sending people their way. But first, we're going to start with Birmingham, right? And Birmingham is, of course, in the UK, United Kingdom, over in Europe. And the person with the most coverage on that is actually Bless D-Packs. I'll put the link in the description. Like I said, go over there. They've got a couple of lists. I think first, second, and first and second place for the Treasure Cup over in UK. But yeah, go over there, show some love, and basically we know that Law won Birmingham, and that's actually pretty interesting. But without the entire scope, we can't really say too much more. So we're gonna move on to some other ones, and we're gonna give the thoughts on the end of it. Moving over to the Australian Treasure Cup, the top four for the Australian Treasure Cup was 1 Kaido, surprisingly 1 Dofi, and 2 Laws. So we're already starting to see a trend. Yes, in the OCG or the Japanese part of the game, we know how dominant Law was, but when it got over to here, we saw that it kind of trailed off. People were blowing up its cards, managing its board, or just straight aggroing it. But we're starting to see that in these Treasure Cups, people are getting through with the powerhouse, the incredibly high ceiling deck that is Law. The winner of the Australian Treasure Cup was Law. So Law has taken 2 so far. Moving down, we've got the Niagra Treasure Cup. We got a little bit more about this one. The Niagra Treasure Cup's top 16 was 5 green kids. That's a high saturation. 5 green kids, 3 purple Kaidos. You have 2 red-green Laws, 1 blue-purple Kaido, and 1 red Luffy. So you can see that the highest saturation is kind of it's interesting. It's definitely green kid. But yeah, Red Zoro and Luffy also take up almost the same amount of slots. So red and green were dominating this top cut. And I think that's kind of going to be a trend that you see because purple is purple. Kaido does Kaido things, but you have to high roll. And it only takes one misstep to bubble out, or one misstep in the single elimination. But luckily the single elimination is best of 3. That's something that everybody needs to understand. It's best of 1 until you get to the top 16 playoffs, then it's best of 3, allowing certain decks to do a little bit better. The winner of, that was Kid, and that's pretty cool. So Green Kid took 1 home, making it, Law and Kid so far for these Treasure Cups. But it's kind of wonky. Once you get to a top 16 cut and you're more than you're almost half of it yourself, the odds for you winning is pretty high. Now going over to the Long Beach one, this is the one where we have the most data. All right, we have got a breakdown for all of the numbers of the decks. And what we have here is you got 134 green kids, 192 purple Kaidos, 189 red Zoros, 55 red Luffys, 49 red-green Laws, 40 blue Dofis, 10 blue-purple Crocodile, 8 blue-purple Kaido, and then you've got 6 red-green Luffy, 5 green Odin, 2 red Uta, 1 purple King, and 1 blue Crocodile from the starter deck. Now moving on to the top 16, it's pretty surprising. You literally have 6 red Luffys. That is a crazy conversion rate. Luffy really got it in there. And then you've got 3 green kids. You got 3 blue Dofis, which is also fairly surprising, 2 red-green Laws, and then you got 1 purple Kaido and 1 red Zoro. And then the winner out of all that became red Luffy. So here's what we've kind of got. Out of the 4 treasure cups, we have red Luffy, green Kid, red-green Law, and red-green Law. Not a single purple or blue deck made it the entire distance. Purple has some inconsistency issues, and we've already talked about them on this channel. And then Dofi, I still feel like my other statement stands. Dofi can beat any deck, but Dofi doesn't necessarily have a great matchup versus any deck. So yes, it can definitely top with a good pilot behind it, but there are just certain times where you're going to be like straight up powered out by just superior card value. And that's kind of crazy. Now, when it comes to decks making it to the top cut, we saw there was always at least 1 Kaido. Actually, looking at these so far, it looks like at least 1 Kaido made it into all these top cuts. We can't really tell for Birmingham, but that is what it is. However, none of them really made it too fast. Like, we saw 1 Kaido get to the top 16 in Long Beach and was immediately taken out by my homie Josh. And then you can also see that in Niagra, it also made it to top 16. But I believe actually Niagra was pretty crazy. 3 of them made it top 16. And then 1 of them got immediately knocked out by Blue Purple Kaido. So that's pretty crazy. Blue Purple Kaido making the top 8 is insane. But I think the first thing you kind of have to note is that, like we were talking about in the previous video, every deck has a chance of working right now if you have a strong pilot. And that's actually what Josh said in his interview that I did, my last video, if you want to go check it out. He's like, yes, you can pay attention to these meta callouts, but every deck right now pretty much can get there if your fundamentals are good, being in set 1. Now, there are going to be some decks that are slightly more consistent, slightly more powerful, and that is something you should take into consideration. Kaido can be extremely powerful, but across 9 rounds in a top cut, there's a lot of time for you to brick. Now, when it comes to Kid, Kid is actually probably the most consistent deck in the format. However, when it comes to this upspringing of Luffy, Luffy is able to do a lot of things. And I actually want to talk about that real quick. Why you're seeing Luffy take up 6 top cut spaces in Long Beach and win it. Granted, Luffy didn't take up many top spaces in any of the other treasure cups, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just make sure. Yeah, Luffy took up 6 in Long Beach, only 1 in Niagara, and then can't even see it on the other info I have for the other ones. But what Luffy is allowed to do is Luffy can still play the red game and push things like Kaido out of the early game. It can still play the red game and aggress decks like Dofi. The difference though is a Luffy deck is going to have a much better time dealing with things like 8-drop Kid, being more of a mid-range and being able to operate more in that space, having more high impact cards at that stage of the game, and then making the extra rested Dawn go a little further. So Luffy has a better Kid matchup, and if you're going to be facing, you know, Dofi, Kid, as well as Dofi, Kid, as well as what's the word I'm looking for, Kaido, Luffy is a very, 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 very good pick. The only thing I would say though is that Luffy versus Zoro can be a little hairy because Zoro can do what you're trying to do except faster. So Zoro will try to race you. Zoro will treat you like the control deck and try to burst you down. And that can be extremely detrimental when it comes to you having a good record. So there's going to be pluses and minuses to pretty much running any deck. No deck is just a clean sweep across the board. There's always some sort of chink in the armor. But how is this going to affect our future treasure cups, right? Well, we're going to get into that. But if you want to find a good place to buy singles for any of the decks that we've been talking about today, I got something for you. So let's talk about our sponsor, Mystic TCG, your one-stop shop for all of your trading card game needs. On their site, you can buy or pre-order starter decks, boxes, even cases, as long as you try to give it about 3 to 4 months ahead of time for the pre-orders, because sometimes the product's a little too hot to keep on the shelves. If you want singles, you can go over to their TCG Player website, where you'll find nothing but product and great reviews. And if you even want to sell your collections, just hop on over to their Facebook page and message them directly, and you get a price worked out for you, best bang for your buck. And you know what? While you're here, let me throw you a little something extra. If you want 5% off of any purchases made on the site, make sure you use the link in the description, or at checkout, use the code WORSTGEN. That'll be on the screen as well, and I hope you find something you like with Mystic TCG. So when it comes to the cards, the decks that were played, I think we're starting to kind of see that, just like we were discussing earlier, any deck can win. any deck with a good pilot can win. We saw Blurple Kaido in Niagra's top 8, and I'm sure that was due to the player knowing what they were doing along with, reps with the deck. Now, when it comes to the decks that can be played, while I do think that the pilot matters more so than the deck in many, many cases, there are some decks that we now know you probably shouldn't bring in if you want a positive record, And most of them, unfortunately, the usual suspects. We got Green Odin, we got Red Uta, we got Blue Crocodile, we've got Blue Purple Kaido. I think that was literally the player, not the deck. Blue Purple Crocodile as well. So we have some decks that probably shouldn't be up there. Purple King, yeah. It's kind of, you just kind of know. But when you get to the decks that, have made top cut splashes, I think it's kind of almost easy to order them. At the bottom of this barrel, I know lots of people are going to be upset about this one, but I am going to put Kaido. Because Kaido has a level of variance. We have seen Kaido look dominant on stream. We have seen Kaido get dog walked on stream. And it's the same deck. It's the same deck. It's just one Kaido drew better. The other Kaido, unfortunately, did not. Kaido can still be raced by both Luffy and Zoro, and even Kid can race Kaido because of the aggressive nature of Kid leader. So a lot of decks can get under Kaido's strategy and then finish them off in the end, and Kaido has to draw well to feel like the dominant force that it can be at times. After Kaido, I think it's Doflamingo. Doflamingo really has zero great advantageous matchups, but it does have some matchups that feel awful. If green lands an 8-drop Kid, then you're going to essentially get bodied, and that's actually something that hurts. It kind of sucks. Past that, I think you can start looking at Law and Zoro. Kind of fits the same level for me right now. Zoro has a much lower ceiling than Law, but Zoro is going to more consistently do what it does and rush people out of the gates, whereas Law has the highest ceiling in the game when it goes off. But purple can remove Law's board. Green can tap things down and smack them. Red, especially if they're running the Bethos along with the Nikos, will be able to destroy Law's field from top to bottom. And Law's going to have a lot of things go well for it in order to get off the ground with its signature strategy and attempt to be the best deck it can be. So, moving past the Law and Zoro, I think now you're sitting at Kid and Luffy. And Kid is the most consistent deck in the format. It has so many searchers. It can tap targets down to swing on them. You're running a defensive utility deck with an aggressive leader, and this allows you to keep yourself relatively safe while going in hard with your leader when you need to. And it's got threats like Basil, 7-drop Kid. It's a pretty solid deck. But note that the cards don't really have top deck potential. Nothing in Kid's deck really does much alone, and that can be a little dangerous for you. Now, the other one in the same tier, I think, is Luffy. And whereas Luffy isn't as consistent as a Kid, I think what Luffy is able to do is attack multiple stages of the game. Luffy is a mid-range deck by build, but because it's red, by nature, it's able to rush you seeing the right cards, playing the right way. Whereas it still has a great mid-game presence, and on top of having a mid-game presence with the inclusion of Shanks and the way that the rested Dawn mechanic works with the leader, you're actually able to go quite hard in the mid going into late game, allowing you to operate in all stages of the game except really, really late game, where a deck like Kaido or maybe even Dofi being able to play multiple big drops and have their defenses open will operate. So I think that, and its matchup versus Kid is better because of that mid-game pressure. But I'm starting to feel like Kid and Luffy are probably the best decks going into the Treasure Cup in terms of consistent topping value, like consistent abilities to do what they need to do game after game after game. So that's kind of how I feel. Let me know in the comments how you feel, if you think some of these decks should have been in higher cuts, or if you think some decks didn't deserve to be in higher cuts. I know that there were a fair amount of big misplays on stream, but you guys have to understand, when you're playing for 13 hours, there are going to be some misplays. These people have gone through 9 rounds of play with very little things to drink or eat, and then they're going straight into top cut pretty much. Nerves are there, exhaustion's there, so misplays are going to happen. It's easy to judge plays when you're well rested sitting in your chair watching this on the TV. So with that being said, let me know your thoughts. In about 3 days, I will be in Miami. I'll be in Orlando going to Miami. I'm excited to see the homies down in Florida. We're gonna have a lot of fun. May go to some locals. I have to see, but if you're going to Miami, sound off in the comments. I will be happy to meet anybody I can, and I wish you guys all luck. We're gonna see what we can do for the next 2 days in content to gear up for Miami. But yeah, thank you guys. I will see you guys later. Thanks for tuning in. And I'm gonna put links in the description to Crossworld TCG, to Eggman, to Bless the Pack, so you guys can see their content pertaining to these treasure cups. And bye.